Hey everybody, Freedom Frequency here. It's Wednesday, September 28th. We're going to talk about, I'd like to say a little bit deeper topics, maybe than what we've discussed before. It's going to cover what the difference is between the people and a person. What's the difference between a people and a person? Before we do that, I want to kind of go over a word I've been using a lot lately, and I think it's really important to understand it and really get the concept. And that's the concept of a derivative. And now, if you're a math major and you've taken calculus, you'd understand what a derivative and an integral is. And it's quite simple. The math behind it isn't so simple, but the idea is, a derivative is of something else. So it can be anything. In a way, you could say your kids are a derivative of you. They are of you. In the math sense, if you have an equation or you have a line where it represents distance, that somebody travels this distance, and that can be represented in terms of a function, as far as maybe the speed changed and took different routes. Well, a derivative of that distance equation would be a speed equation. So when someone travels from A to B, if it changes, or if it's a solid, he travels at the exact same speed, or if he changes the speed, the derivative of that distance is going to be what that individual speed is. So, if someone's walking, all of a sudden they walk faster, you'll see a little kind of a line curve up, but the derivative of that, the speed equation, would probably show a constant up where the speed's constantly increasing, even though the speed would be constantly increasing, but that's not the critical part to really understand. It's you understand that what a derivative is of something. It's of something else. So, for example, we talk about money. I've been talking about money quite a bit. The money we know of, the cash, the bank account values, and everything we throw around as money is not the real thing. It is a derivative of something else. Some people will say money just kind of pops out. It's not backed by anything. It's just there, or just can be created whenever, which there's a little bit of truth there. But the important part is that it's not the real thing. It's of something else. It's the securities that are on the other side that are the real thing. And so it's really important to understand that, because when we get our mind wrapped around something and we start making decisions or trying to figure something out, if we're just understanding the derivative, we have no recollection of what the real thing is, of what that thing is of. So that's one of I think the really great tricks, is that the world full of talking about derivatives and derivatives of derivatives. So it's like it's like a news report, right? The real thing, the event that happened, is the real thing. The reports of it are all derivatives. They're all secondhand kind of accounts of what actually happened. And nobody can go back and re-experience that thing again because it's done. But the people that did see it could make reports. And then there's people that can make reports on those firsthand accounts. And the more and more people talk about it, the more it's slightly changed, the truth becomes more and more of a derivative, or what's being told is a derivative of a derivative of a derivative. And so I talked about the court system, it was last week or the week before, talking about the statutes at large. Statute at large is the actual thing Congress actually votes on and makes and writes. Those are the statutes at large. Those are it. The United States Code is a derivative of that. It's of the statute at large, but it's the secondary thing. But all of our attention, all the courts, Everybody goes to just the code, the code, the code, the code, the code, the code. And simply since there is a derivative, it means that there can be a deterioration, so to speak. You cannot represent the entire original thing by its derivative. So if you have an equation, a mapped out path from LA to New York going through all these different cities, right? Whatever. If I give you just a video screenshot of the individual speedometer, how fast he's going, his speed being a derivative of how far he's traveled, you wouldn't know where he went. You wouldn't know where they traveled, right? You would only know the change in speed when they stopped, when they went fast. But you wouldn't know the actual route, the actual thing, the actual movement of a thing or the person from A to B. And the same thing when we talk about the other thing that happens in courts is, it's the same idea when we talk about a trust and having the legal side and the equitable side. What happens in the legal world, what's talked about in the legal world as part of a trust, has to coincide with the equitable world, right? So the equity is the real thing. The legal, the workings of it, is a derivative of the real thing, right? When something gets put into trust, it is a thing. It is in there. That's the res. That's the value. The trustee operates that thing. The trustee pays the bills, processes things, files taxes, negotiates whatever for the thing. But it is not the thing. The trust is not the thing. The trustee is not the thing. The thing in the trust is. That's the equity. And so in the legal world, in courtrooms, you can have a situation that may have happened or a problem that has occurred. But instead of actually going to the actual problem or the thing that occurred, because maybe it happened in the past, you have to deal with the legal information about it, what people have said, other possible evidence, things that have been written down. And it's this whole world of legal discussion. It's all a derivative of what actually happened, of what the truth is, what is right. And sometimes they're able to just have enough legal information where they can understand and recreate and represent the thing that actually happened. But it's never the same. It's never the thing. It's always a derivative. So what's another, I guess I'll just get right into it too then about, what the people are versus the person. Let me see if I can pull up this definition real quick. There it is. Oh, all right, make it smaller. Slide it over here, share my screen. Oops. All right, so I just find this so fascinating. The definition of a person, and so all I did was Google it. I think I clicked on this one. This one says CFR. I mean, the same definition gets used routinely. I tried finding it before this, but I found it in the Colorado Revised Statutes. But it says a person means a natural person, all right, or a trust, or a state, a partnership, a corporation, professional association, or a corporation or other entity, public or private. Now, most of you would have stopped at the very first definition, right? A human being, possibly. You look in Webster, what a person is a human being. But here in the government, in the code and the statutes, we use the person all the time. And it's not just talking, it can't just be talking about the living man. It can't be talking about a human being, because how could that be a trust? How could that be an estate? And if you look at all of these different definitions, the one thing that I think they have in common, what they all truly are, is this right here. They are an entity. It is a thing without definition. It is you can have a partnership between two people and do a business and never have any paperwork. There could be no filings with the state and register as a partnership and get your EIN number and all this stuff. You don't have to do all that. You can still have a partnership. So every living man has a person. When you read code, you read statutes, they all talk about the person, your person, this person, that person. In fact, I need to bring up the Constitution. Let me do that first. This is a little teaser. Let me see. All right. Okay, we pulled this up before, but this is just another reference to try to show what I'm talking about here. Here's the 14th Amendment. The Fourth Amendment, sorry. The right of the people to be secure in their persons. How can you be secure in you? Right? And they're clearly two separate things. Right there in the Constitution, Fourth Amendment. And if you just take this grammatic breakdown here, their persons. People have their persons. People are in possession of their persons. And you take that with the definition we just saw, and basically you could decipher that the right of the people to be secure in their entity. This thing, this person that was created on behalf of every living man and woman is nothing more than an entity. That's all we know. That's all we know. Other than they want us to say it's us. That's what they want us to say. They want to say, I am a person. I am the person. And since I admit to being the person, and you decide what the person does, I got no choice. I got no option but doing what you tell me. Because I have agreed to be the person without full knowledge. So right there, just to do you can see all this. This is the Constitution of the Amendments 1 through 10. Did a search for people. There's seven results came up for people in this Constitution. Person. 26 results for a person. And that kind of makes sense though, because the entity with what the person is, it's your ID card. If you get hired by a big company, they give you a job offer with your name on it and whatnot, and then you start working there, you get a little card, has your badge number on it, your ID on it, a little barcode on there. And this big company you work for in this big building, it decides that ID decides where you can go throughout the building, what processes you're allowed to be part of. It's no different than the government. Our person is what we use to navigate the system, navigate the government. For the government to know to give us benefits, for the government to know to create a social security account for us, for the government to know that I have a driver's license so that I am a safe motorist. It's for the government's purpose to provide for us and to basically keep an account of us, keep an account of living souls, the people that they're in their country. And you can see this, the language of the person, this is saying what persons can and can't do, what they're allowed to do, what can't be taken away from them, right? No person shall be held to answer, nor shall any person be subject to the same offense. Right? These are all talking about what the limitations or what protections are granted to the person. The entity of the man, of the woman. Because that's how the whole system operates. It operates as simply accounts moving around and what's associated with those accounts. And those accounts are really nothing but an entity. Like if this probably might not be possible, but say it was way back in the day, back when banks weren't so well regulated. I'm just talking about the story um, before we got going here about someone trying to deposit a check to a trust or whatnot. What would happen if I went to a bank and I was in some small town way back in the wild, wild west, and I say, I know somebody lives around here. I need to give them a bunch of money. I'm going to deposit it with you so that you hold on to them. And they don't have an account there. Well, all that bank would do would take the money and then create an entity, create an account of it. Just create a reference to know what to do with this gold. And they would make up an entity. And that entity would just be so-and-so's name, probably, and has a bank account. That's an entity. Any questions? Anything you want to kind of? Not yet. Not yet. All right. So let me pull up something else. Pull this over here. So let me pick up the 14th Amendment. I don't know why I don't have them. All right, 14th Amendment. Similar. All persons born or naturalized in the United States. Now that is a fascinating statement, isn't it? If you understand in the Fourth Amendment, what we got? Oh. Here at the Fourth Amendment, we says the right of the people to be secure in their persons. And in the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now, how can a person be born if it's an entity, right? In fact, to force somebody into citizenship, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion around the 14th Amendment. There's a lot of stuff out there that I guess you would say throw shade on the 14th Amendment. But I think there's just two separate definition of and this one talks about this 14th Amendment says that nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process. The Fourth Amendment says the same thing. Wait, no, the Fifth Amendment. Am I doing that wrong? Yeah. So the Fifth Amendment talks about the person. But it says here, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. See, this one is saying like a general amendment for the person, no person can be deprived. But then the 14th Amendment comes along and says it's the state. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property. So what does that all mean? Why am I talking about all that? Well, I'll go back to that teaser. Come on. There we go. So the system, the government, can only see the entities and accounts, right? I know it's full of living people doing living things, pushing buttons, signing things, writing up documents, but the actual government entity, there's no physical way for it to keep track of the people without their person, without an account. See, it's an account first. Your person is a number account first, and you're attached to it. And so that's the only way the government can see you is by your person. Because the person can go into contract, the person can go into debt. The person is another entity that an account can be attached to. The living man is free. It can be attached to an account, it can be attached to its person, but it's really up to the living man. It's really up to them to animate this person, right? If the government decides an individual should go to jail, this whole thing goes to jail, right? For the rules that the person here, by way of the man, may have broke. But that 14th Amendment straight out says, the states can't deprive you of your rights. They cannot deprive you of your property, your liberty. And yet there is 18 U.S. Code 241 that says that an individual that can be deprived of their rights under the color of law, under a statute, because of a statute. And so that's where the rub gets, right? You know, the next, let me see, work like this. There we go. Well, there's a couple of weird, tall-looking people, but you know, here we have the people. It says the land of real living people, right? This is where the people with the heartbeats and the breath that are actually living, this is where they reside. Now, we created this big old government, but this big old government does not allow people into it. It only allows persons, U.S. persons only. So these people wearing their little disguises, their little identities as their person, get on. And when you're a person, you got to register to vote. That's an obligation of the person, of the citizen. So right here, voting, you got to pick one, R or D. That's the system. And once you've done that, you got to agree to pay taxes. Check the box yes or check the box yes. You know, and the person asks you, do I have rights? And they say, yes, you're an American. And the next thing they say is, no, you can't do that. And if you want that, you got to do more. And the point is that all this stuff here is just, it's all a creation. This whole thing is a creation of us, of the people, of the living. We created the government for benefits and protection. It is a creation of us. And yet to interact with it, we have to have a person. We have to use our person. And the foundation, the critical thing you just got to get is this difference here. There's a difference between the people and the living man, the soul, the life, person, who you can hug, who you can kiss, who you can have a live conversation with. And then there's this other little identity. You know, the same idea, you know, in this system here, in this U.S. government, in order for them to do what they got to do, you know, they create rules for all these persons so that everything works together. I wrote under here British subjects, but then I crossed it out and said U.S. persons, because effectively it's the same thing. You know, the government create rules for their subjects, the government creates rules for their persons. But per the Constitution, per our rights, there's a limit on what the U.S. government can do to these folks, to the living. And there is no preset determination. There is no preset warning. The moment you agree to be the person, the moment you agree to be your name that's on your birth certificate, it's almost like a mental brainwashing trick. I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to say, yeah, I'm the person. Someone asks you what your name, you know, is Raymond Surface here? They're looking for the person. They're looking for the account in their system, in their computer or whatever. And just whoever the living soul is attached to it. I guess that's it. So again, before we get here, so the person is a derivative of the living man. The person and the statutes that create it, that allow it and say it can and can't do, are only a derivative of the living man and the rights. That's why the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. This Constitution protects this guy. And this guy's knowledge of his rights is what protects him. There is nothing in this system that will protect it on its own, protect the man on its own. We want to believe the court system will. They say they do, but when it gets down to it, and you know your rights are being deprived or taken away, There's times where being attacked. There's lawyers that won't help you. There's lawyers that just won't represent you. So, last thing on derivatives. It's about God. Ooh. So this is my understanding. This is the way I look at it. So man is a creation of God. That is the first derivative. Little d with no apostrophe. And then the man has an understanding of God. In their mind, the perception of what he thinks God is. It's an understanding. There's another derivative of what he thinks God is. And then that based off that understanding, man writes down the word of God that he believes that God has either spoke through him or man assumes is the word of God. It's a second derivative. And then based off that Bible, that word of God or that saying, a house of God is created. Religion, whatever religion it is, whatever religion is out there, it is not a direct connection to God. It is a derivative of man's thoughts, man's words. And so you take a lot of people out there today, and I've asked quite a few, not quite a few, a handful, if they believe in God. Simple question. Do you believe in God? A lot of them quickly said no. I said, oh, okay. And they asked me. I was like, yeah, I believe in God. And we talk about it more, and they say they don't believe in this. They don't believe in whatever this religion thing or whatever. Their opinion of religion, they reject it. Because they reject this, they may often reject the entire point. Even though, as they are derivative directly, you are a direct derivative of God. There is only one derivation between the man and God. Whereas religion, there are several. So the mind can get you wrapped up in this derivative, in this secondary, third, fourth thing. Try to dictate and tell you what you should be doing with your life. But the whole time, God's here, inside you. Direct pipeline to it. All right. Derivatives. People. Persons. Any thoughts? No? You guys want me to stop the video? I think the point of why I really wanted to bring this up is that it is a piece to, I think, to the great fraud. Okay, I do feel that there is a great fraud being occurring upon the living people. You know, like trusts is the same energy. There's two things of one piece. There's a derivative. The legal is always a derivative of the equity. Legal doesn't happen without the equity, and yet the legal is all they want to talk about. It's all there is to talk about. Your person is in the legal. The living man is in the equity. The living man has rights. The person has rights. At least what's written down in the amendments. The living man has more rights. The living man is a direct derivation of God. And the living man is the creator of all things the government creates. So the living man is on even par with the whole government. But in order for the government to function, they have to have persons. And you have to have your little representation of a person. It's like a guy that the guy that created the company you got a job for, right? You know, where there's special badges to get into certain rooms, and certain people go here, and certain people can't go here, but everybody can go to the cafeteria. Okay, so everybody gets a badge, and it doesn't matter what badge you have, you can get in the cafeteria at lunchtime. But the owner guy, the creator guy, right? He doesn't get involved in a whole lot of processes, you know, and for whatever reason, there isn't a Grand Mastercard. So when the guy wants to go eat lunch, he just takes a random old generic employee card because all he wants to do is go get lunch. Well, he goes and gets lunch, and then on the way back, whatever, he gets lost. And now he's down in the corridor trying to get out, trying to get back to where he was, but his basic old ID card won't let him go through all these different doors, even though he's the one that built the whole damn thing. I mean, it's the same trap that people get stuck in with the government. We get hypnotized to be the person, and it's too easy. It's just too easy. So, okay, that's it. I'm going to end it. Thank you so much for watching and participating.